Hello everyone. The term of angiospermic morphology that we will be discussing today is inflorescence. Now, to understand what this inflorescence is, we must first understand that inflorescence is a cluster of flowers. But at the same time, what we must bear in our minds is that this is not a random cluster. This, in fact, is an extremely strategic arrangement of flowers, an arrangement that has been strategized in order to facilitate some kind of a dispersal process, basically pollination. Now, if we look across the different members of angiospermic families, we see that or we understand that these strategies can basically be categorized into three basic groups. These three basic groups being racemose group or racemose type of arrangement of flowers, the second group being the cymose type of arrangement of flowers, and the third group being the special type of arrangement of flowers. Now, these special type of arrangements are those arrangements that cannot directly be classified under racemose or cymose type of inflorescence, and therefore they have been taken into this third special group called as the special arrangement. Out of these three, the topic for our discussion today is racemose type of inflorescence. So before we move further, there are a few terms of morphology that we all need to understand in order to understand this entire structure of inflorescence a little better. Let us first look at this one part of an inflorescence stalk. Now in this entire inflorescence stalk, you see that there is one main stalk on which the other flowers are born. This main stalk of inflorescence on which the other flowers are born is known as a peduncle. There also is a stalk of individual flower. So you see here that each flower also is a stalked flower. This individual stalk of a flower is known as a pedicel. So stalk of the inflorescence is peduncle, stalk of individual flower is a pedicel. If the flower has an individual stalk, it is called as a pedicellate flower. A flower may, however, not have an individual stalk. In case it has no pedicel attached to it, the flower is known as a sessile flower. If you see carefully, there is another outgrowth present at the base of each pedicel of the flower here in the representation. This individual outgrowth which is present at the base of the stalk of the flower is known as a bract. If the flower contains this bract, it is called as a bracteate flower. A flower may, however, have no bract at all, and in case it has no bract at all, the flower is called as ebracteate. So now that we are clear with some of the basic terms associated with any type of inflorescence, let us come back to the main topic that we are about to discuss, and that is racemose type of inflorescence. Now, a racemose type of inflorescence usually refers to an inflorescence where the main stalk of the inflorescence, that is the peduncle, does not terminate into a flower. So if it does not terminate into a flower, as it appears in this photograph here, you can see that the oldest flower is always born at the base and the youngest flower comes at the top. Now if the youngest flower comes at the top, and if we see and if we assume that the peduncle is ongoing, the growth of the peduncle is an ongoing process, then the top of the peduncle keeps growing and every new flower that is added to the stalk is always added at the top. This form of growth is known as a acropetal type of growth. Acropetal referring to the fact that the direction of growth is towards the apex. Now if the direction of growth is towards the apex, this entire flower arrangement, this entire arrangement system is known as the racemose system of arrangement. Now, racemose system of arrangement of flowers can itself be classified into various subtypes based on individual characteristics of the flower. For example, whether it is pedicellate or whether it is sessile, or we can talk about whether it is unisexual or whether it is bisexual, which means that whether it has both androecium and gynoecium in it, or whether it has only androecium, that is a male flower, or whether it has only gynoecium, that is it a female flower. Based on these particular characteristics of the flower, we can classify racemose into a number of types. Starting first with the first type of racemose inflorescence, which is a raceme type of inflorescence. A raceme type of inflorescence is basically a racemose arrangement of pedicellate flowers. The flowers are pedicellate. Another character is that the flowers are also bracteate. So basically, if there is a racemose arrangement, that is oldest flower at the base and youngest flower at the top, if this kind of an arrangement, acropetal arrangement of flower is seen with pedicellate type of flowers, then the system of arrangement under racemose is known as raceme type of arrangement or raceme type of inflorescence. As you can see it in mustard here in the photograph, it can also be seen very clearly in the gulmohar plants. You can see that the oldest flower is at the base and the youngest flower, the buds are appearing at the top. The peduncle, however, keeps growing towards the top. The second type of arrangement is again very simple to understand once you've understood raceme. If raceme is an arrangement of pedicellate flowers, spike is a racemose arrangement of sessile flowers. A sessile flower, as we have just seen, the sessile flower is a flower which does not bear a stalk, does not bear a pedicel. So a spike arrangement is a racemose arrangement of sessile flowers, and it is very commonly seen in a plant called as Acaeranthus. You must have seen this as you must be playing in childhood and some small bits of grains get attached to your socks. Those are all Acaeranthus. You may also have seen coxcomb. Coxcomb also has this kind of an inflorescence, which is spike type of inflorescence. The next arrangement is that of spikelet. Now a spikelet type of arrangement is an extremely condensed type of a spike arrangement. So basically a spike is getting condensed into a smaller arrangement. In order to understand a spikelet inflorescence, let us first again look at the spike inflorescence. Now imagine that this is the peduncle on which these are the bracts, on which again these are the sessile flowers that are growing as usual in a acropetal succession. Now imagine that the same stalk of the flower or the same peduncle undergoes some amount of condensation. Now imagine again that this is the stalk, this is the first bract, the stalk again, the second bract, the stalk again, the third bract, and the stalk again, the fourth bract. The stalk may extend a little again before it terminates. Now the lower two bracts here, they do not contain any flower in them. So they are termed as the empty glooms. The upper two bracts, however, they contain flowers. Let us look at one of the flowering bracts. So let us look at one of those structures which will have a flower in them. So this flowering bract will first have a parter. So the bracts are now in pair. The smaller bract here is termed as a bracteole. The name for this bracteole, the specific name for this bracteole is pallia. The flowering bract is known as a lemma. Now inside the pallia and lemma, there is a small flower which is represented by the gynoecium, the androecium, and small dots at the base which are representative of the calyx and the corolla, which is called as the laudicule. Now this spikelet is one structure that you see in the entire inflorescence of, say, wheat. Now if you've seen wheat, the inflorescence of wheat, you must have seen structures like this. Now each of these structures is a spikelet as we have just discussed here. This here is an example of spikelet type of inflorescence from grasses. Each individual unit that you see here is an example of a spikelet, and the spikelets themselves are borne on another stalk, and therefore this is a complex or a compound type of inflorescence. The next two types of inflorescence are extremely interesting to understand. The one that we are discussing first is a catkin type of inflorescence. Now this catkin type of inflorescence, as well as the one that we are going to discuss next, they are both types of spike inflorescence. Now just for your revision, spike is a racemose inflorescence, a racemose arrangement of sessile flowers. So if it is a racemose arrangement of sessile flowers, what is different about catkin is that in case of catkin, the peduncle is pendulous. When I say the peduncle is pendulous, it just means that the peduncle is not strong enough to hold erect, and it will drop and it will remain in a pendulous form, hanging upside down from the main stalk. This type of arrangement or this type of inflorescence is typically seen in case of mulberry plants, botanically known as morus. Similar type of spike arrangement is also seen in spadix. Now in case of spadix, the stalk is not as feeble as that in catkin. In fact, it becomes stocky, or it becomes a little fleshy, and this fleshy arrangement has very minute flowers arranged on its surface. Now what is interesting about both spadix as well as the previous catkin inflorescence is that in both the cases, the flowers that are borne on this pendulous type, in case of catkin inflorescence, in case of the pendulous type of peduncle, or in case of the spadix inflorescence, the fleshy type of peduncle, the flowers that are borne are unisexual in nature. When I say they are unisexual in nature, it means that a single inflorescence can either be dedicated to only male flowers or only female flowers, as in case of catkin, or in case of spadix inflorescence, there may be female flowers present at the base of the flower and male flowers present at the top of the flower. So the stalk will have two types or two regions of flower. The first region or the top region will be those of the male flowers. The female flowers will be borne at the base. These female flowers will have only gynoecium in them, no androecium will be present in them. What is also interesting about a spadix inflorescence is that the bract at the base of this inflorescence stalk becomes large and often colored to cover the entire inflorescence or enclose the entire inflorescence within itself. This enlarged, often colored type of bract which is present, which encloses the entire inflorescence in it, is known as the spathe. Spathe is the name of this colored bract that you see at the base of the inflorescence. The bract is often called as petaloid bract because it is petal-like in function for attracting the pollinators and causing the pollination process. The next type of inflorescence that we are now going to talk about is corymb type of inflorescence. Now beginning with corymb type of inflorescence, what we observe is that the size of the peduncle now starts to get slightly condensed. Now as the stalk or as the peduncle starts to get slightly condensed, we see a change in the length of the pedicel as well. Now if you look at the structure of corymb carefully, what you will be able to observe is that the lower flowers have a longer stalk and the younger flowers have a smaller stalk. So the length of the stalk or the length of the pedicel has ensured that when you look at the entire inflorescence from the top, it appears that all the flowers are at the same height. Now this can be better observed in case of the typical example of a corymb inflorescence, which is a candy tuft type of flower. In a candy tuft flower, if you look at the inflorescence from the top, you will be able to see that the youngest flower is at the center. It appears to be at the center, although it is at the top in terms of reference point. But in terms of its appearance, if you look at it from the top, it appears to be at the center. Now this condensation of peduncle, which has led to the fact that all the flowers now appear to be at the same height. Now because they appear to be at the same height, if you look at it from the top, the youngest flower is now present at the center and the oldest flower is now present at the circumference or at the outer side of the inflorescence. Now, if I consider the pattern of growth, I cannot really call it an acropetal growth because the acropetal growth is not very apparent. Now, starting from corymb, in the next coming inflorescence patterns of racemose, the same acropetal arrangement that we saw in an extended peduncle now comes to be referred as a centripetal type of arrangement or a centripetal type of growth pattern. Why centripetal? Because now the apex, because of condensed peduncle, appears to be at the center. So what was towards the apex in case of an extended peduncle is now towards the center in case of a condensed peduncle. So for corymb, all the flowers, they appear to be at the same height. Why do they appear to be at the same height? They appear to be at the same height because the stalks or the pedicels of individual flower, they are all of different length. The oldest flower has the longest pedicel, the youngest flower has the shortest pedicel, and because of this differential nature of the stalks, all the flowers, they appear at the same height, therefore giving rise to a centripetal type of growth pattern. Another or the next type is umbel. Now in umbel, the peduncle is condensed to a single point. As you can see in this diagram, the peduncle is condensed to a single point and therefore all the flowers appear to rise from the same point on the peduncle. Now if they tend to rise from the same point of the peduncle, again the thing that is going to happen is that what you will observe from the top is you will observe the oldest flower at the circumference and youngest flower at the center. But the difference between corymb and the umbel type of inflorescence is that in case of umbel inflorescence, you see that all the flowers, they are born from a common point at the peduncle. So the peduncle is ultimately condensed to a single point. In the previous one, that is corymb, however, we see that the peduncle, although it is condensed but not very short, it is still slightly extended. And what is important is that individual stalks of the flower are of variable lengths, giving rise to a platform type of arrangement of the flowers if you look at it from the top. So umbel means all the flowers appear from a single point. Corymb means all the flowers reach up to the same point at height, but they may not rise from the same point at the peduncle. So an example of umbel type of inflorescence is coriander. Now remember that coriander is a member of a family. The entire family is identified by this umbel kind of inflorescence. It is therefore called as umbelliferae. The name of the family is umbelliferae. The newer name for this family is Apiaceae, but this basically is the general characteristic. The umbel inflorescence is the general characteristic of this entire family. Now umbel is an inflorescence where all the flowers are born from the same point. But remember that all the flowers here are pedicellate in case of an umbel inflorescence. If the same flowers or the same arrangement, if we consider it with flowers that are sessile, you see here that this common point, the central common point, is the peduncle, and all the circles that you see around, they are the flowers, the individual flowers which are sessile. They do not have stalk in them. Because they do not have a stalk in them, now we know, or now we call this inflorescence by a new name, and this new name is capitate type of inflorescence. So capitate type of inflorescence is nothing but an umbel inflorescence with sessile flowers. So basically umbel has stalked flowers arising from the same point on the peduncle. Capitate is also flowers arising from the same point on the peduncle, but the flowers are sessile. A typical example of this is seen in Touch Me Not, botanically known as Mimosa pudica. Similar kind of flowers you must have seen in and around your places. These are very common to a family or a genus called as Acacia. The next inflorescence is the capitulum type of inflorescence. Now this inflorescence is a characteristic feature of the family Asteraceae. This family is considered to be one of the most successful families in terms of evolution, and one of the characteristics because of which this family is so successful is its inflorescence, which is capitulum. Common members of this family include Helianthus, which is sunflower, and Tagetes, which is marigold. Now, if you look at this flower carefully or this inflorescence carefully, what you'll be able to see is that there are minute pinhead-like structures at the center, and there are these ray-like petals at the circumference. Now, if the same flower is taken and a longitudinal section is attained out of it, what you will be able to see is that there are minute tubular structures at the center, and the petal-like structures are present at the surroundings. Now, what is interesting is that this structure is that of a condensed peduncle over which there are two different types of flowers that are borne. Now, the first thing that we must understand is that we have been seeing the condensation of peduncle through the last few types of racemose inflorescence that we talked about. But in case of capitulum, the peduncle condensation is absolute. The peduncle has condensed into a flat area. This flat area that the peduncle has condensed into, this platform that it has condensed into, is called as the receptacle. And on this receptacle, there are minute flowers which are borne, and there are two types of flowers that may be seen in this section. The two types of flowers that may be seen here, the ones at the center are called as the disc florets, and the one at the periphery are called as the ray florets. The ray florets are unisexual in nature, and the disc florets are bisexual in nature. And if you look at the overall arrangement, you'll be able to see that the disc florets, they are arranged in the central area, and the ray florets are arranged at the periphery. Now, it is important that you know that the disc florets are arranged in a centripetal manner. Centripetal manner meaning that the youngest disc floret is at the center and the oldest disc floret is at the outside. Similarly, if you look at the ray florets, the youngest ray floret is at the inner part of the circle and the oldest ray floret is at the outer part of the circle, therefore making this entire arrangement a part or a type of a racemose arrangement because it is arranged in a centripetal manner. This arrangement can be diagrammatically represented as this. Now, if you look at this diagram, you'll see that the disc florets are present at the center. The youngest disc floret you see are still in bud condition at the absolute center of the diagram, the oldest being at the periphery. The ray florets are one with a single petal or a ligulate structure that we call this structure at the periphery. The flattened peduncle is called as the receptacle, the platform on which all the florets are borne, and around the entire structure there is a cup or a protective layer formed of bracts, which is called as the involucre of bracts. The term involucre refers to a cup-shaped structure. The cup-shaped structure formed of the green layer or the bracts which cover the internal structure, which is that of the inflorescence. So with this, we finished with the first type of inflorescence patterns that have been racemose type of inflorescence patterns. Now in our coming lectures, we will also discuss the second type of inflorescence patterns, which is the cymose type of inflorescence, followed by the special type of inflorescence, which would include certain special families and certain special examples. I hope you like this video, and you may leave your feedback in the comment section below. The references that are used for this video, for the photographs, etc., are also present in the description section, and some reference material has also been copied in the description section below. Thank you very much for watching the video.